I'm Faye Watt, and let's queer up students and youth culture. Supreme Court stands by trans students. Won't hear Florida school dispute. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to review a Florida lawsuit that challenged a school's decision to respect the transgender student's name and pronouns without notifying parents. The case, Littlejohn versus School Board of Leon County, centered on a Tallahassee middle school student who at age 13 asked school staff to use a different name and they/them pronouns. School officials followed district guidance, creating a support plan that affirmed the student at school without immediate parental notification. Florida-based parents, January and Jeffrey Littlejohn, sued the school board, calling it a secret gender transition plan and arguing the school violated their constitutional rights. Their petition claimed the district had secretly driven a wedge into the parent-child relationship and unlawfully usurped the parent's role. Lower courts sided with the school district. A federal judge dismissed the lawsuit, and the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that decision, stating the school's actions did not constitute a constitutional violation or shock the conscience. The court emphasized that officials sought to support the student, not harm the family. The Supreme Court's refusal to hear this case follows a similar decision last week involving a Massachusetts dispute over student privacy. Together, the decision suggests this court is not currently inclined to impose a nationwide rule requiring schools to disclose students' gender identity to parents. The ruling comes amid a political debate in Republican-led states, including Florida, where parental notification policies and restrictions on transgender students remain central issues. Well, look at that. The court said not today to policying pronouns. Imagine that. Respecting a young person's identity is not a national emergency. Sometimes support isn't scandalous. It's just being human.
Well, and human. So obviously Republicans will have none of that. So the Supreme Court is basically not saying anything. They're basically not prohibiting states from telling schools they have to intervene in families and and out the kids to their parents, but they're not saying that they're prohibited. They're not saying that they have to. They're just kind of letting it go, like so many of our rights right now. Now trans kids have to get up and do a secret search every morning on Westlaw and see if they're protected in their particular school district. Mm-hmm. It's getting so frightening because it's not just election to election. It's not just state to state. Now you cross county into county. You go into school district 1, school district 2. It's so frightening out there, but at least this decision or this lack of decision doesn't harden the discussion, right? Mm-hmm. It's still putting out there fluidity and the possibility for continued discussion, which I guess is a win.
Gil?
And I think one of the things you're looking at here, and I found it very interesting, the parents are talking about the wedge being driven into the relationship, when the real people driving in the wedge here are the parents. Quite frankly, as somebody whom, and I think all of us have gone through the coming out journey, we all know the strenuous mental toll that it can take on each and every one of us. The problem is when it's families that are causing the wedge between themselves. Yep. When it isn't legislation, when it isn't the court, when it comes down to what we talk about at our kitchen tables, the values we instill in our children, the fact that our children don't feel that they can be open with us about their gender expression, that's the problem right there.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what the Leon County School District is doing. It starts right at home in the fact that the parents are driving already a wedge that they don't even know that they're driving into their child based on the conversations that are happening at the dinner table.
Yeah, that's
we
the
can
wedge.
talk public policy, we can do all this stuff, but it all starts at conversations we have at our dinner tables. And it's about how we make our children feel in our home.
They want to sue the school board. How about having a talk with your child? You know what I mean? How about sitting there and maybe, doing that? Jason, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the simplest of conversations. It's literally like, sit at the kitchen table, sit at the island, like meet them at the park. Have those conversations so that the kids know what to expect. So when they start hearing everything, they know they at least have a safe space. And I mean, everything starts at home. Like everything starts at home. It could also end at home, but everything starts at home.
Yeah.
So I've been a teacher for 25 years. So I deal with kids asking me all the time to use a different name. I don't ever really ask questions as to what that name, why they chose that name. Sometimes they use a name that's like ghost, or they might a mellow or something like that. I don't know if it's because it's a shortened version of their name, if it's their middle name, if it's something that their family has, they call them, it's their nickname. And it's not my place to ask them those questions. If they ask me to say they, I can do that. That's a gender neutral pronoun. So I'm not calling male, female, female, male. I'm not doing any of that for the parent to have an issue with me misgendering them or something. It's a neutral thing. Is Jamie over there? Yeah, they're over there. I can say that. That's not my place to have any kind of conversation with a student about their sexuality or their gender expression, because that student may not want to have that conversation with me, right? 100%. So unless there's something destructive or a disruptive behavior going on, in which I would refer that to the school counselor if something like that was happening, and the school counselor will make the decision after speaking with the student if that's a safe thing for them to, talk to the parent about, or if the student says this is an unsafe environment in my home. So the court rightfully, held up the decision that it is not in violation of the parents, right. However, there is a flip side to it as well, and I think that all of you are probably would be welcoming of a child, if you have children, if they were in this kind of transition phase in their mind, right? And so I think if it does cross the line maybe into we're calling them a girl and they're a boy, and we're using that kind of language, and you didn't know that, as liberal people who would be embracing them, you'd probably want to know that as well. And I think it's just where the school counselor decides to draw that line. It's not the teacher.
Well said, Trini. Well, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.